Okay, so we looked in this first couple of podcasts at the content of the poem, what it's about, and the fact that we can see it being essentially in 4 sections, probably more clearly than many of other Simon Armitage's poetry, where the stanza breaks seem to fall in a slightly random way. First stanza is about the harebell, the flower. The second stanza about the past and the difficulties they faced. The third stanza about the present. The fourth stanza about the future. So what we have is we have the present with the harebell, and the harebell sets off a memory, sets off a train of thought in the poet about what it represents to him. And what it represents to him is not overly positive, and yet what's come out of the difficulties they faced is something very, very positive in that third stanza. And then in the fourth stanza, let's give it now, in air, with light, the chance to fade, to fold. Let's let go of the harebell and let's move on. So what does this harebell represent? Well, if we look at what the harebell represents in terms of the meaning of flowers, you can see here, this is from victorianbazaar.com, the harebell represents humility and grief. That's quite interesting. So if you had a bouquet of flowers and you had harebells in them, then that would represent both humility and grief. So this harebell is here for a reason. The grief of the past, maybe? The difficulties of the past? But humility, humbleness, being able to admit your mistakes and move on. So Armitage has put this harebell in the poem for a reason. It's not just a random flower, it is representative, it does have a symbolic meaning. But if we take it deeper, if we go deeper and we think about the harebell pressed between the sheets of the book, and we can think about the way in which we hold on to the past, that we press the past in between the pages of our own lives, that we find it very hard to open that and to let the past go. And I think this is why this poem is so powerful, because in a very, very simple way, Armitage is giving us a very profound message that in order to really fully move on in life, we do need to let things go. We do need to let the harebells of our past go, these moments of grief and difficulty and challenge. That's not to say that we have to forget them altogether and pretend they never happened, but to let them go, to forgive and to move on, because we can see that they are so much better than they were, and yet they would possibly be even better, or they're now in the position to be able to let these past events go. You may have noticed the structure of the poem, as well as 4 stanzas. It's 14 lines. And a 14-line poem is a sonnet. Now, Simon Armitage wrote a series of sonnets, and he put them in one of his first anthologies of poetry called The Book of Matches. And these poems were meant to be read in the time it took a match to burn down. So they're short and they're to the point. But also the sonnet is traditionally seen as a love poem, and this is in many ways a very beautiful love poem. So Armitage has chosen this particular sonnet form for a reason. And if we look at the rhyme scheme, if there is one, it's quite hard to see, but rest and bleeds, word, times lies, love half, fold and go. What are known as half rhymes. And there's a sense of a loose following of the sonnet form. So in this poetry, we've really seen a sense of Armitage breaking away from some of the other poems that we've seen so far and doing something which in many ways is more obviously poetic, which I actually think he does extremely well.